guys, I'm Sneha and you are watching my channel Book Junction. In today's video, I'm going to recommend you some books that are completely unputdownable. So if you are going through a reading slump or if you were a reader once but now you are completely out of touch, then this video is for you. So all the books that I'm going to talk about in this video are so freaking interesting that if you pick them, you have to finish those books because there's no other way. You will be so intrigued that you just have to get to the end. So yeah, now without any further delay, let's start this video. But before that, if you like what you see so far, then do make sure you subscribe to my channel. It will mean a lot to me. So the first book that I want to talk about is really special. I finished reading this book day before yesterday and it took me only one single day to finish this book. So the book is Radio Silence and this is what the book looks like. It's written by Alice Oseman and it's such a stunning book. I cannot even start to tell you, but I'll try my best to describe this book to you. The story of the book Radio Silence is about Francis and Aled. Now Francis is a girl and Aled is a boy. Both of them live in the same village and Francis was friends with Aled's twin sister Caris, who has now went somewhere. No one knows where she went and she is missing. Now Aled has this secret podcast on YouTube which is pretty famous. The name of the podcast is University, but no one around his school or his friends, no one knows that he has a podcast running on YouTube which is so famous. Now Frances is someone who is a huge fan of this podcast and she has never found anyone with whom she can talk about the podcast, and for her listening to that podcast is the only refuge because she is such a huge fan. But as I told you guys, she did not have any idea that the podcast was run by Aled, who lives in her own village and whom she knows that, you know, she knows him. He is an acquaintance of hers. Now as the story continues, Aled and Francis come together and start working on the podcast together, and Francis starts working as an artist for the podcast, whereas Aled does what he used to do. Now everything is well and good, but eventually things happen, everything gets messed up, their friendship is ruined, and the book actually starts when all of that stuff happens. Now, is this book a love story? No, this book is anything but a love story, and in the very beginning of the book, the author makes it clear that you do not expect there a love story because then the story will be ruined, and that's why the author makes it pretty clear that this book is not a love story. Francis and Aled are not going to fall in love with each other, and no, it's not a spoiler. Alright, so the next book is The Bookish Life of Nina Hill by Abby Waxman, and this is what the book looks like. It's such a beautiful book, and I mean, this is one of those books that every reader should read because it's honestly about reading and about a voracious reader. Now the protagonist of this book obviously is Nina Hill because the name of the book is The Bookish Life of Nina Hill. So Nina Hill is a voracious reader. She reads all the time and she works at a library, and isn't that so ideal? So Nina's life is pretty simple and ordinary. She works at a library, she reads, and in the evening she goes to bars for playing the trivia game because she is just so knowledgeable and she knows everything since she reads so much. So yeah, that's basically her life. But eventually things happen and she gets to know about her father who has now died. So she gets to know about the death of her father, and then she finds out that she has so many brothers, sisters, relatives, niece, nephew, and suddenly a new door has opened in her life about which she had no idea. And on the other hand, a guy named Tom, who is sort of her trivia nemesis, he suddenly gets really attracted to her and he starts taking a lot of interest in her life, and it seems like he has a crush on her. So all of these things happen and suddenly there is so much happening in Nina's life because honestly nothing much happens in her life. So suddenly there is so much happening and she is like, what can I do? Should I just run away? But that's not really an option. So what will she do? And that's what the book is all about. The book is about exploring herself. It's about coming out of your comfort zone and you know, doing something else other than reading, I guess. The next book in this list is The Tattooist of Auschwitz by Heather Morris, and this is what the book looks like. It's again such a beautiful book, and this book is obviously about the life in the concentration camps of Auschwitz. Now obviously when it comes to concentration camps and Nazi Germany and world wars, I know people tend to think that the stories are going to be too intense and it might get slow and it might get dragged, and I don't want to use the word boring because it's such a sensitive thing, but I just feel like a lot of people don't enjoy reading these books. But obviously these books are not meant for people to enjoy. These books are mostly for people to understand what people went through, and obviously we should not enjoy people's, you know, sufferings. But my point is that this book is very, very intriguing. This book is absolutely unputdownable, and even though the name sounds like, you know, so intense and something you would not be very sure about if you want to read, but this book is so freaking unputdownable. I cannot even tell you. The moment you start reading this book, you just have to finish it because you want to know what happens next. So the story is basically about Lail and Geeta. Both of them meet inside the concentration camp of Auschwitz and they fall in love. But the book is not obviously just a love story. It's also about how they support each other throughout their journey inside the concentration camp, and not only each other but, you know, everyone else who were there inside the concentration camp. How much effort Lail took to save other people, and how much effort he took to save Geeta especially. Next book in this list is Truly Devious by Maureen Johnson, and this book is a thriller, a murder mystery and a detective book, but it is very different from other detective books, and that's why I have added this book in this list. Now usually when we come across a detective book or a crime thriller, usually the protagonist is, you know, a middle-aged man who is, I don't know, maybe going through a crisis or has some weird past and backstory, and usually the stories are like that. But with this book it's very different because the protagonist of the book is Stevie Bell, who is going to solve the mystery in this book. And honestly it felt like this book is a combination of two genres. First is obviously, you know, the thriller genre and also young adult fiction. So it just sort of felt really new and contemporary, although the storyline is not set in the modern world, but it still feels like it is set in this modern world. I don't know if I'm able to explain it, but anyhow the book is so freaking interesting. It's again very intriguing. The thrill is obviously there. Next up I have Never Been Unhappier by Shaheen Bhatt, and I already have a review of this book on my channel. You can go and check that out as well if you want to. Now I have added this book in this list because this was the book that actually brought me back from a reading slump. I was going through one of the worst reading slumps ever, and then I picked this book, and oh my god, I finished this in like, yeah, in one day only, in a few hours basically. Like altogether I finished this book in one day and I felt so good about it. So this book is about Shaheen Bhatt's journey with depression, or rather we can say that it was her battle with depression, and the book is so wholesome where she shares some glimpses and some bits out of her own private journal, which is so courageous because it's just crazy. No one wants to share something so personal, but she has. And the book is really important. It will give you a bit of an idea about what it feels like to be depressed and different reasons and all of that stuff. So yes, this book is actually very informative as well because Shaheen Bhatt has made sure that she does not keep any room for any kinds of, you know, misunderstandings, or she has just tried to make you understand what depression is as closely as possible. So that's why this book is really amazing. Again, it's very interesting. It does not feel dragged or slow or boring. It's really a good book. Next up I have Wonder by R.J. Palacio, and this is what the book looks like. It's such a beautiful book and the story is just as beautiful and heartwarming. So this book is about a boy whose name is August, and he has a very special looking face. His face is very different from other people's, so that's why when he goes out everyone looks at him and he feels really uncomfortable and he feels like, you know, people are gnawing at him and life is very difficult for him because of his face. So the story is just so heartwarming. It will just melt your heart. You will cry at so many moments, and I just don't really have words. This book is just so endearing. At times what August feels, you will end up feeling it to your core, because it doesn't matter if you have a different kind of a face or not. Sometimes there are some insecurities also that we have related to anything, you know, maybe our body image or anything, and it just makes us feel so different and so weird when we are out amidst people. Although obviously we cannot compare the two, but you can sometimes resonate and relate with August as well, the way he feels sometimes and all of that. So yes, this book is extremely beautiful. It's obviously very interesting and unputdownable. That's why I have added it to the list. Alright, so the last book in this list is Hippie by Paulo Coelho, and this is what the book looks like. Honestly, this is one of my most favorite books by Paulo Coelho, and I'm just so glad that he wrote this book. Now, as the name of the book already suggests, this book is about hippies, and the story is Paulo Coelho's own story from the phase when he was also a hippie. So as you would know that hippies used to travel all around the world, and they sort of did not agree with the idea of, you know, an ideal standard society, and they had their own ideologies and stuff. So people generally didn't used to like hippies because hippies used to be in drugs and all of that stuff, because of which they were you know, not that much respected by everyone else. Anyway, in this book, Paulo shares his own story where he also took a magic bus from Amsterdam to Nepal, and in that journey he went through different countries and different experiences and all of that stuff, and the story is so interesting. Oh my god, I really hope that you enjoyed it and found this video valuable. If you did, then please do make sure that you hit the like button and subscribe to my channel, and do click on the bell icon as well, so you will be notified with all the notifications. And I'll see you next time. Until then, goodbye.